This meeting of the Onslow County Board of Education will come to order. Good evening. We're so glad to see all of you here and that you got in safely from the storm that we were having. First order of our agenda this evening is to welcome Reverend Haggard from the First Free Will Baptist Church in Jacksonville to our podium, where he will deliver our invocation. Reverend, thank you for coming.
Can we have a word prayer? Father, I want to thank you for the opportunity to live in America where we can govern ourselves and restrict ourselves and regulate ourselves and be moral and choose to follow you. Thank you for the opportunity to pray today. It's an honor just to be able to pray before this body and also before you and talk to you. And I pray you help us as a society, as citizens, to never do anything that would hinder our ability to pray to you and for you to answer our prayers. I pray your blessing upon this board tonight and this coming school year, for it's in your name we do ask it. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Will you rise and face the flag and join me in the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I would ask this evening that you remember Mr. Brock Ridge, who is recuperating from hip surgery, and he's coming home, and we just are praying for his speedy recovery so that he can join us pretty soon. First, the approval of the agenda. You have that in front of you, and as you have already had an opportunity to look at that, I would ask that we have a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion or comments? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Next, approval of the consent agenda, and that has 3 different sets of minutes under there from the regular meeting and 2 special board meetings that we had. I entertain a motion to approve those.
Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any comments or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
And all opposed, like sign. Next is the Good News Spotlight, which is what we really love to do, the Good News Spotlight. And since this is her first board meeting, we're excited to introduce and welcome our new Chief of Communications, Dr. Beth Folger, to our team, and she will lead the Good News Spotlight this evening. Welcome, Dr. Folger.
Madam Chair, board members, Mr. Stout, thank you. It's my honor to be working in Onslow County Schools, and such a warm welcome I've received. So thank you to everyone and to the staff. I'm excited tonight to be able to share a Good News Spotlight and start off with Carolina Forest International Elementary School. Principal Helen Gross and her staff have been pursuing global opportunities for their teachers and students for the past 3 years. Through their partnership with the Watson College of Education, a trip to South Africa is in their future, and I am so envious. A Fulbright Hayes short-term study abroad grant funded through the U.S. Department of Education in the amount of $89,279 will afford 12 Carolina Forest teachers research and development and professional development opportunities while they're in South Africa. So if we can have Principal Helen Gross and her team to please come up. I'll continue telling you a little bit about this good news item. Is this the team that's going to get to go to South Africa?
No, this is our strategic.
Yeah.
This is representatives of our strategic planning team.
Representatives of the strategic planning team, and we've all said we're going to do rock, paper, scissors if someone has to bow out at the last minute of who gets to go. I think Dr. Eason's going to fight me for it. This grant project entitled South African Culture, History, and Literacy will fund a 4-week study abroad experience to South Africa next summer. As part of the project, the participants will engage in cultural immersion in Port Elizabeth and in Cape Town, South Africa. The educators will learn and teach along with South African teachers with a focus on building cross-cultural competence. The objectives of the trip or of the project are to improve the cross-cultural competence of U.S. teachers, to study the culture and history of South Africa using a critical literacy framework, to investigate how South African teachers teach the culture and history of South Africa, and to create and disseminate curricular resources that can be used to teach about South African culture and history in the United States schools. While in South Africa, the participants will study with faculty from the Nelson Mandela Metropolitan University, and they will engage in a 3-week intensive field experience in a township school in Port Elizabeth. During the field experience, they're going to observe classes to understand how teachers integrate culture, history, and literacy in their instruction. Project participants will meet with South African teachers to discuss how U.S. teachers teach culture, history, and literacy. And project participants will also create online curricular modules that United States teachers can use to teach about South Africa, African history, and culture. The chair of the Department of Instructional Technology, Foundations, and Secondary Education, which has partnered with Onslow County Schools now since 1995, commented that Onslow County Schools has a fantastic commitment to globalizing education, embracing diverse perspectives, and providing supportive environments for our teacher candidates. Carolina Forest International Elementary has been part of the UNCW Partnership in Action School Program since 2012. What a tremendous opportunity for our teachers and our staff to take part in this traveling abroad to South Africa. And thank you to Principal Gross and her team for applying for the grant and giving this opportunity to their staff. Thank you.
We're envious. Any members of the board have any good news items they'd like to share at this time?
We really haven't had anything going on since school's been in recess, but we did have the opportunity yesterday to honor those that were retiring or have retired over the last, since the last session has stopped. So that's always a good thing to wish people to do and wish them the best. And there were some really, really long terms that we had there. I think up to, 37 years, I think was the longest one?
I believe so. Over 1,900 and some years experience collectively, so that was great. Would like to mention, though, that throughout the school system this summer, we've had camps. We've also had our summer music camp, which put on a delightful play. We've had many of our workforce development teams go out of state for competition, and we'll be honoring them and recognizing them at a future meeting. So we have had a few things going on, and I'm sure that with all of the staff development teachers have been doing, our schools have not been sitting empty at all. That is the end of our Good News Spotlight, and if you are here just for the Good News Spotlight and would like to make your leave, this would be a good time for you to leave before we get into the business of the board, but we do encourage you to stay if you'd like. And thank you for coming. We have a public participation session at this time, and that is a time that anyone can speak on any agenda item that we have this evening. And you have to sign up for that ahead of time. We have not had anyone sign up, so we will skip that and move right into the first item of business, which is the revised Head Start budget justification and cost allocation plan. So at this time, I would recognize Dr. Beth Folger and Teresa Alphen, who is the Head Start Director.
So tonight, Ms. Alphen and I will be sharing some information with you and requesting board approval of the 2015-16 revised grant application, Section 2, for the cost allocation plan. And Ms. Alphen will give you details.
Thank you. Good evening, Madam Chair, board members, Superintendent Stout, executive staff. Thank you for the opportunity to come and share our revised budget for Head Start. We had the Head Start budget revision approved by the Policy Council last Thursday. So we have 2 Head Start classrooms were closed at Morton and Summersville, which reduced our personnel by 2 teaching positions and 2 teacher assistant positions. But the good news is that these staff members were filled the vacancies, so it's not like they were looking a job. And also we restructured the mental health services to be coordinated by one of our family specialists, which also eliminated our mental health coordinator position. But the service is still going forward, but we just kind of restructured that piece. Budget revisions include a change in preschool funding percentages of select Head Start staff. As Head Start director, percentages moved from 75% Head Start to 45%. One education specialist, which was 100% EC, is now funded 50% of Head Start funds. And then 3 teacher assistants who served as floaters were 100%, is divided across the different programs, with 45% being Head Start. And then other revisions were under contractual services, and you should have a copy of the of the revised budget that's highlighted. And under contractual services, the utilities portion of the dollars was moved to substitutes. Last year, the expenditures increased that was allocated for 14-15. We submit the original grant in March. So when we start having budget discussions in April and May, there can very well be changes. So therefore, we come to the board for revision. So in this case, we moved some utilities to substitutes because that did increase, and we moved some dollars from transportation to personnel expenses. And actually, that's all. It was the minimal revisions that do not have to be approved by the Office of Head Start, because if it's less than 25% of the full funding, you don't have to have it approved by the Office of Head Start, but for local audit purposes, we need to have it approved by the board and the Policy Council. And if there are no questions and concerns, that is it.
Thank you, Ms. Alphen. Do we have a motion that we approve the revisions as presented?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any questions? Discussions? You did a very good job the other day explaining this to the Head Start Policy Council, and they had some great questions for
They
you
did.
too. They really
They did.
did. If there are no other questions or comments, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Myers, Chief of Operations, the Dixon Middle School Phase 2 bid.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman, members of the board. The new Dixon Middle School Phase 2 construction package to build a new middle school at Sneads Ferry was bid on July 16, 2015. There were 4 qualified bidders, with 2 of the general contractors having previous experience in Onslow County. The lowest responsible bidder for the project, which includes the base bid and several alternates, is Clancy & Thays Construction Company, headquartered in Raleigh, North Carolina, and also they have branches in Wilmington, North Carolina as well. Clancy & Thays bid of $24,117,000, which is inclusive of the base bid and selected alternates, is below the projected construction budget of $26,082,950. Funding for the project has been made available through the Joint Education Funding Policy established with the county in April 2014. Smith Senate Architecture has reviewed the qualifications of Clancy & Thays Construction Company and has provided a letter of recommendation. In your packet, you'll see the letter. After reviewing the responsible bidders, staff also recommends the awarding the bid to Clancy & Thays Construction Company contingent on LGC approval. The base bid includes the construction of a 950 student capacity school. It is also recommended that several alternates be awarded with the base bid, which includes additional classrooms, workspaces to increase capacity by approximately 100 students, site access improvements to address increased capacities, additional gymnasium bleachers to better accommodate student capacity, interior building foundations, and the installation of owner-preferred mechanical systems that are consistent with the equipment and hardware that have been standardized throughout the school system. Two alternate packages not considered at this time include alternate G3 for polished concrete floors in the core areas and alternate G10 to relocate the water main along Highway 210. But please note that alternate G10 may need to be accepted at a later date depending on NC Department of Transportation and/or NWASA's requirements. So at this time, staff would ask the board to consider a motion to award the Phase 2 bid for new Dixon Middle School project to Clancy and Thays Construction Company in the amount of $24,117,000 for the base bid and selected alternates. This is contingent on LGC approval. Staff would also request that the board approve an additional $79,500 if North Carolina Department of Transportation and/or NWASA require the water main to be relocated along Highway 210 within the next 180 days. At this time, if you have any questions, I'll do my best to answer. Also, I would like to mention that we do have the architects here, Smith Sennett, John Sennett is present, as well as Ed Gordon and Les Parker. And then we also have a member from, a person from Clancy and Thays, Rob Bridgers is here as well.
We have a motion to accept the bid as presented with the explanation.
Motion to approve the motion as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have a second. The floor is open for discussion.
Yeah, I've got some comments. I would like to thank staff and the architect for going forward with the additional, the amended wing on the north wing there for the alternate one. I do think that that will give us the additional flexibility to move some of the students, the fifth grade students from Dixon Elementary School over to there. I think that'll free up. We're looking at the numbers at Dixon Elementary and Dixon Middle, we're way over. I think at Dixon Elementary, about 1,100 students with a capacity of about 700. So we're still going to be over capacity, but at least that will help us alleviate some of that. So I really appreciate that part being included in there. During the initial February 16th meeting, I did bring that up, and I do appreciate the fact that the board supported us on that. I think that'll go a long ways towards at least alleviating near term some of the overcrowding we've had. We just went through a huge reorganization with the districts. We'll probably have to do that again in the future at some time if we can't get enough schools online. So this certainly puts that off. People would rather go to the schools in their local area as opposed to having to move them across the county. So appreciate that.
Any other comments?
I think this is another great day for our school system, and particularly the Dixon Middle, Sneaks Ferry community. We celebrated the groundbreaking last month, and many people attended that event. And with this particular bid coming the way it did as far as under project, I feel very happy with that. The climate, I think we hit it at a good time. In competition with others, but I think that ball is going to start rolling because a lot of things that we've pretty much been at a standstill for the past 5 or 6 years. But I'm excited for the Dixon community, and it's just a great day, and I'm sure our superintendent and staff and our architects working together to make sure that we continue to bring that project under budget and on time, ready to open up in August 2017. Thank you.
And thank you for all of you have worked on this.
I've got a question. The water main relocation, would that be in order to put in possibly a turn lane or something, or what would be the reason for moving?
Yes, that's exactly right. We're in the process of having a deceleration lane on 210, and right now the Department of Transportation hasn't identified that it's a need or florist, but at the same time though, we've asked Clancy and Thays if they could hold the alternate for 180 days in case another decision is made that requires it, and that would be $79,500.
So the turning lane is in one of the alternates as well?
The site access is part of the alternate.
Yeah.
Yeah, alternate 2, I believe.
Steve, I know that road is supposed to go around to have another egress at 172. Is that it, 172?
172.
Is that included in this, or will
That's
that?
not included in this right now for the school itself. And Mr. Gordon, if I say something incorrectly, please let me know. But for the school itself, what we needed was one access road, and that was on Ridgefield Avenue. As the development, as Mills Creek Landing develops, they may look at where they want to have the roads and stuff too, and they'll be sharing the cost in that as well. So right now, we separated it out, and we're just using the one road for the access, which we need for the front access and for the buses.
Do you think eventually we're going to have to put a stoplight?
That's one of the things that it's not warranted at the present time with the Department of Transportation, but that's something that we're strongly recommending. We think a stoplight would benefit for the safety of the students right there and the traffic flow.
I have one more question concerning the LGC approval. Do you have a time frame on that?
I was talking with David McCole from the county, the finance director chief financial officer from the county, and he said that they've already submitted the package for the LGC, and they're looking at a review on September 1. And so at this point in time, we're trying to get this package in there too to help promote the approval of the LGC package.
Sounds good. We're excited.
So am
Any
I.
other questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you for all the hard work you've done and for answering our last minute questions too.
Thank you. Anything I can do to help out?
Thank you. Mr. Irwin, you're up next with some policies for us to
Yes, ma'am. Thank you,
amend.
Madam Chair, members of the board. There are 5 policies for your consideration. Actually, the first one is just to be distributed this evening. It's a new policy. It's called Student Voter Registration, and all it does is just comply with the statute, the North Carolina statute, which requires principals to have voter registration forms in the high schools to make available to students so that they can register. And so this policy just acknowledges that statute, and it'll be for your consideration at a subsequent meeting should you wish to adopt it. Shall I continue?
Yes, you may, unless there are questions for Mr. Irwin concerning this policy. Since we're not voting on it this evening, it's open floor. Okay?
The second policy is actually for your consideration to delete. This is the career status policy, which we've had since 2000, but as you know, the legislature has seen fit to change that status, and so career status is no longer, except for those, of course, who've earned it. So the policy, the School Boards Association has recommended that policy be deleted.
We have a motion that we accept the revisions and deletion of this policy as presented.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any comments or discussions?
I have one quick question. You had mentioned that we still have some career status. So were those people that were grandfathered into that career status, or would they still have been covered by this policy?
Well, this policy did not address the new changes that the legislature enacted, which was to go basically to contracts. And so when the court said that you can't take away a property right in your contract, which previously was called career status or tenure, then all of that just kind of stopped. And so those that had obtained career status, the court said you can't take that away from them. As to what you do with future teachers who haven't obtained the career status, that's up to the legislature, and they've gone away with the career status.
All right, thank you.
And those career teachers still have that due process that is still in place.
Yes, ma'am, as far as I know, that's correct.
Any other questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Next policy, sir.
The next one is the testing and assessing policy. It's 3410, assessment program. It's 3410, and this policy just reiterates that the superintendent is to make efforts to minimize the time that schools spend testing students. And it spells out no more than 2 days of instructional time per year to take in practice tests that don't have the primary purpose of assessing current student learning, and they won't be subject to field tests or national tests during the 2-week period preceding the end of grade test or end of course test. And so it's pretty much spelling out the limitations on testing and assessments. So that's the modification of that policy.
Is there a motion to accept the modifications as presented?
Moved.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion or comments? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed. Student progression and placement.
Yes, ma'am. This is an involved policy that has become less involved if you'll check all the strike-throughs. This is the policy that previously or currently provided for retesting, and that has been removed from the policy. And the intervention and retesting end of grade and end of course has been removed, and the superintendent is required to make reports to the board, and then the board is required to report to DPI. But in the event children don't obtain the reading standards at the 3rd grade level, they do get a no-fee camp reading second chance, so to speak. And then if others who have accomplished it wish to also get the supplemental help from the reading camps, depending on the availability of funds, they may not be able to accomplish that.
Do you have a motion to accept the revisions to this policy?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion or comments? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed.
And the final one is policy 4110. It's immunization and health requirements for school admission. And as you know, that within 30 calendar days of the first day of attendance, students have to show age-appropriate vaccinations. And that's just been struck through, and it's been listed as to what they are. And then, of course, it may change, and there's a North Carolina immunization branch that keeps that current. And of course, there are additional requirements for those students who reach 12 or the 7th grade, and those are listed there as well, two additional immunizations. And there's a provision that's additional for children of military families, for folks who come in perhaps not at the beginning of the school year and may or may not have the North Carolina required immunizations, and it basically just provides that they too should try to have them obtained within 30 days or as such time as reasonably determined under the Interstate Commission for Military Children. So there's some leadway for those that come in after the bell's rung, so to speak, and have additional time to get their immunizations and vaccinations.
Motion to approve the revisions to the immunization and health requirements.
Motion to approve?
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion or comments?
Yeah, I've got a question regarding that last paragraph D, the children of military families. With regards to that 30 days or within such time as reasonably determined under Interstate Commission. Now, is that a written opinion, or is that something that changes frequently?
Mrs. Easton is shaking her head. I think that's that there's a regulation, a body of rules that they go by. It's just not set forth in this policy.
Do we know what that is?
We have
within the military compact, there are certain things we have to provide as much flexibility as possible for our military families, and that's spelled out in different areas in the military compact. The Onslow County School System has been working with the military compact for about the last 6 years as it pertains to registration, admission into school, transfer of records, and things like that.
Does that answer?
Thank you.
Does that answer your question?
No, but I'll do some more research on it and find it. Thank you.
Does that vary from state to state as far as what immunizations are required, or are they both mostly pretty much the same as?
I'm pretty sure it depends on what the state wants to require.
Question. Alex, in regard to the homeless students, I notice it says that we have an assessment in a timely manner. Is there an external document that governs when we try to get that done, or does the district have the flexibility?
I think we try to go by the same rules, but there's a homeless liaison that the board has that works directly with that student and the Department of Social Services and what other agencies that may be involved, and that's just going to be on a fact-by-fact, case-by-case method to be able to accomplish that.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions? Hearing none, all in favor of accepting the policy as presented, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. This leads us to the second comment participation session from our audience. And if anyone would like to speak to anything that is under the purview of the board, you certainly have the right to do that, and we willingly invite you to our microphone if you'd like to speak. Since there's no one, okay, yes, sir.
Good evening, board members, Madam Chairwoman, and Mr. Stout. I'm Ed Scoggin, my wife, Velvet, and Ed Scoggin, Velvet Scoggin, our oldest daughter, Taylor. We're just here, I guess, as advocates for, as well as to make some comments for improvement to the IB, or the International Baccalaureate Program. Yes, ma'am. Sorry about that. Yes, ma'am. Let's see, we had wanted to have some comments to be advocates for, as well as to make some improvements, comments for suggestions to the International Baccalaureate Program. And I guess the executive summary, my wife will go into more detail, I guess, with more details about it, is that basically, Taylor, we didn't hear about the program, we heard it through word of mouth. Currently she's a graduate 8th grade from Newbridge Middle. Due to zoning, she's going to Northwoods. Northside High School. But we didn't hear about it, though, just through word of mouth. And so the main thing is that we didn't hear about it, and we'd like to just get the word out better, as well as when we did hear about it, the program starts at the 10th grade level, and which would have to cause her to move to a different school halfway through. So with that, I'll turn it over to my wife with more comments about specifics for improvement.
Well, yeah, and so just to add on what he's saying is Taylor is now going to the 9th grade. And in her 8th grade year, she has already been kind of stabilized to have 4 high school credit hours, right? So she's already had Math 1, Math 2. She's already had English 1, and she's had honor in Earth Environmental Science. So that's 4 high school classes already completed in 8th grade. So she's kind of on the track to be able to, prepare for the IB program. So we went and met with Mrs. Rombley, and she told us all about the IB program. But like my husband said before, she was never presented that when it's time to register for her 9th grade classes. She knew nothing about it. We knew nothing about it. So we think that the program is a good program, but no one knows about it. And so for her to actually even to get included into the program, she won't be allowed to go until 11th grade year, which means she will have to start in 9th grade at Northside High, which is where we're zoned. But after she's done that, my problem is the transitioning. It's hard enough for a 9th grader to transition into from an 8th grader to a 9th grader, but then you want her to move by her 11th grade year once she's gotten settled at Northside High. So I think that is unfair to a student when she's already started high school, got settled, got on a swim team, made friends, and then she wants to be in the IB program, then she moves her junior year to go to Jacksonville High. So, and that is our complaint about the IB program. We think it's a very great program, number one, if everybody knew about it, And then number two, if they had some better way of getting them into it as a ninth grader and not as a junior or sophomore to enter into the program. So those are our concerns about the program. And another thing I feel like, another reason I think is very important is the advisory program, because she's already had the classes she needs, but based on this list that we have here, she needs honors world history, she needs Spanish 1, Spanish 2 by her 10th grade year. And so if she's at Northside taking classes, by the time she's getting to her junior to go to Jacksonville High, who's going to make sure she's been advised accordingly for her to meet the IB programs to get into the program? So those are my concerns for her and any other parent who doesn't know about the IB program. So,
Thank you. Thank you for coming and speaking. Any other business that needs to come before the board at this time? Hearing none, I ask for a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion, as Mr. Wiggins would ask? There's none. All in favor say aye. Aye. This meeting is adjourned. Have a safe journey home.